My family kicked me out for refusing to give my sister $2,000 from my college savings, but when I exposed the truth on Reddit, I discovered it was all a lie to save my dad's failing business, and now my sister cut them off. I'm 18 years old, just graduated from high school a few months ago. And honestly, I need to tell this story because what happened with my family still has me processing everything. I've been working since I was 16. You know, nothing fancy, part-time jobs at restaurants and stores, but I always had it clear that every dollar I earned went straight to my college fund. My parents never told me they'd save for my education. That was clear from the beginning, so I knew that if I wanted to go to college, I'd have to pay for it myself. And that's fine, I guess. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. My family was always pretty normal. Or so I thought. My father, Robert, worked at a tech company, made decent money, nothing extraordinary but enough for us to live comfortably in our neighborhood. My mother, Patricia, stayed at home, and I have an older sister, Elena, who's 22. The relationship with Elena was always complicated, to be honest. When we were kids, she bullied me. Constantly, those sibling things but taken to the extreme, like hiding my homework, telling my parents I had done things I hadn't, making fun of me in front of her friends. My parents never did much about it. It was always like, it's sibling stuff, they'll get over it. But she never really got over it. We just grew up and grew apart. When Elena left for college like 4 years ago, things at home improved for me. I had my own space, could do my things without someone constantly trying to make my life difficult. She studied business, graduated this year in May, and my parents were super proud, threw a huge party and everything. I went, obviously, but honestly I felt like a stranger in my own family, watching everyone celebrate her achievements, while nobody really asked me how my college plans were going or if I needed help with anything. The thing is, my father decided to quit his job like 2 years ago, right when the pandemic started. He had this idea that he was going to start his own business, something related to tech consulting. My uncle Vincent, my dad's older brother, invested money in the business because he believed in the idea. At first, everything seemed to be going well. My dad was excited, talked about how we were going to be better off financially, how this was going to be the family's future. But then COVID happened, and basically everything went to hell. The business started struggling, clients were canceling contracts, and my dad started stressing out a lot. He never openly admitted things were bad, but I noticed it. The hushed conversations with my mom, the tense calls with my uncle, the way he started checking every household expense. During all this time, I kept working and saving. By the time I graduated high school, I had like $12,000 saved up. It's not a fortune, I know, but for me, it was everything. It was my ticket out. To go to a decent out-of-state university, to start my own life. I had applied to several universities and got accepted to one that was like 6 hours from home. Not too far, but enough to have my independence. I was excited, nervous, but mostly proud of myself for having achieved this alone. Then July came, like 2 months after my graduation. Elena was living in an apartment in the city, working at a marketing company or something. One night we were having dinner, the 4 of us together, which was weird because lately my dad was almost always in his office working late. My mom cooked pasta. I remember that detail because it was my favorite food, and I thought, how strange that she's making this on a random Tuesday. Should have been a sign that something was about to happen. We were eating and my dad suddenly puts down his fork and looks me straight in the eyes. "Marcus," he says, "we need to talk about something important. Your sister is going through a tough time financially and needs help with this month's rent." My mom nods and adds, "It's just for this month, honey. Just to help her get by." And I'm sitting there like, okay, but what does that have to do with me? Then my dad says, "We need you to give her $2,000 from your savings to cover her rent." I literally froze with the fork in my hand. "What do you mean, give her my money?" I asked, because honestly I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mom starts with that soft voice tone she uses when she wants to emotionally manipulate you. That voice of, "Be reasonable," she says. "She's your sister. Family helps each other. Besides, you have enough money saved. $2,000 isn't that much for you, but for Elena, it means she can pay her rent and not get evicted." I tried to explain to them that that money was for my college, that I had worked years to save it, that it wasn't fair for them to ask me to give it to Elena when she had 4 years of college paid for by them. When she never had to work during high school, when they basically gave her everything while they told me to figure it out on my own. My dad got serious. That kind of serious, that's scary. And says, "Don't be selfish, Marcus. Your sister helped you a lot when you were a kid. You owe her this." And I was like, she helped me? When exactly did she help me when all she did was bully me for years? The argument escalated quickly. My mom started crying, saying I was disappointing them, that I didn't understand what it meant to be part of a family. My dad raised his voice more and more, saying I was ungrateful, that they had given me everything for 18 years, and that the least I could do was help my sister. I tried to stay calm, but finally I exploded. I told them it wasn't my responsibility to support Elena, that if they wanted to help her, they should use their own money, that I had worked for every cent of my savings, and that I wasn't going to give it to someone who never did anything but treat me badly. My father got up from the table so fast the chair almost fell. "You have 10 minutes to pack your things and get out of my house," he said. "If you're not going to act like part of this family, then you have no place here." I thought he was joking at first, seriously, but when I saw his face, I knew he meant it completely. My mom was just sitting there crying, but didn't say anything to stop him, didn't try to defend me or anything. I went to my room, stuffed clothes and my important things in a backpack, grabbed my laptop and my important documents. I was in total shock. Like, is this really happening? Are my own parents kicking me out of the house because I won't give my money to my sister? When I came downstairs with my backpack, my dad was standing at the door. He didn't say anything else. Just opened the door and waited for me to leave. I left and heard him lock the door behind me. I stood on the porch for like 5 minutes not knowing what to do. It was like 8 at night. There was still light, but it was starting to get dark. I grabbed my phone, and the first thing I did was call my Uncle Vincent. Vincent was always different from the rest of the family. He's my dad's older brother, like 50 years old, works in finance and does well financially. He and my Aunt Gloria, who's the most maternal person I've ever met in my life, were always good to me. When I told them what had happened, Gloria literally said, "Stay where you are, we're coming for you right now." They arrived in less than 20 minutes. My uncle didn't even knock on my parents' door, just helped me with my things and we left. In the car, Gloria hugged me and said, "You can stay with us as long as you need, sweetheart." My uncle was quiet, driving with that serious expression he has when he's very angry but doesn't want to show it. I later found out that he and my dad had been having problems over the business, that my dad owed him money from the investment and wasn't able to pay it back. But at that moment, I didn't know any of that. The first few days at my aunt and uncle's house were weird. They gave me the guest room, which was bigger than my room at my parents' house. Gloria cooked incredible meals and tried to make me feel comfortable. Vincent gave me space, but also made it clear that if I needed to talk, he was there. My parents didn't contact me at all. Not a message, not a call, nothing. It was like I had ceased to exist for them. Like a week into staying with my aunt and uncle, I started thinking about how unfair it all was. Not only had they kicked me out of the house, but they were also trying to look like the good guys, while I looked like the selfish son who wouldn't help his sister. People in the neighborhood had seen me leave with my backpack that night, and I knew my parents were probably telling their version of the story where I was the bad guy. That bothered me a lot because for years I had kept quiet about all the things Elena did to me, all the times my parents ignored me or treated me differently, and now I was going to be the villain of the story. So, I did something. I shouldn't have done, but at the time, it seemed like the only way for people to know the truth. I sat down one night and wrote the whole story in a Facebook post. And when I say the whole story, I mean the whole thing. I explained how my parents paid for Elena's entire college while they told me I would have to pay for mine. I talked about how I worked since I was 16 to save every penny. I told about the dinner where they demanded I give Elena $2,000 for her rent. I described how my dad kicked me out of the house when I refused. I included details about my dad's failed business and how Vincent had lost money investing in it. I basically aired all the dirty laundry in public. I posted it at like 11 at night, and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I had like 200 notifications. The post had gone viral in our community. You know, that kind of drama people love to read. I had comments from uncles, cousins, my parents' friends, neighbors, people from the church we used to go to when I was a kid. Most of the comments supported my position, said my parents were wrong, that I had done the right thing by refusing, that it was terrible they had kicked me out of the house. But there were also comments defending my parents, saying I was an ungrateful brat who was exposing my family out of spite, that I didn't understand the difficulties they were going through. That family should stick together in tough times. Some comments were particularly cruel, like, "Your sister was always the better of the two. There's a reason your parents prefer her." Those comments hurt more than I want to admit. At like 2 in the afternoon, my dad called me. Well, not exactly called, more like screamed over the phone. He was furious, like I had never heard him so angry in my life. He was telling me how dare I humiliate them publicly, that I had destroyed their reputation in the neighborhood, that I was a disgrace to the family. My mom was crying in the background, screaming for me to delete the post immediately. I hung up on them because I wasn't going to stand there listening to that. Then the messages started. My dad, my mom, Elena, all asking me to delete the post. Elena sent me a particularly long message telling me I didn't know anything about her situation, that I had no right to expose her financial problems, that I had made her look like a freeloader in front of the whole family. My paternal grandparents called me saying I was destroying the family, that my parents were devastated. My maternal grandmother, who had always been closer to me, told me privately that she understood my frustration, but that maybe I had gone too far. The most interesting thing was seeing how some relatives who publicly supported me in the comments privately sent me messages like, "It was good that you told them, but you should consider deleting the post to keep family peace." That's when I realized all that support was superficial, that people loved the drama but didn't really want to get involved or take a firm stance. After 2 days, I decided to delete the post. Not because my parents asked me to, but because I realized I wasn't achieving anything constructive. The damage was already done, everyone in our community knew what had happened, and keeping the post up was only generating more drama and making more people get involved in something that was really between my family and me. When I deleted it, my parents didn't thank me or anything. They just stopped sending me messages. Like 3 weeks passed, and I was at my aunt and uncle's house, trying to plan my move to college, which would start in August. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen with Gloria, and she was making cookies, and suddenly she says, "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you." She sits down with me at the table with that kind of serious expression that lets you know something important is coming. She tells me that when Elena was in college, during her last year specifically, Gloria and Vincent had given her money several times to help with expenses. This was without my parents knowing. Apparently, Elena had asked them for help directly. They weren't huge amounts, Gloria says, but in total it was probably like $4,000 during that year. Then Gloria tells me something that left me frozen. The week before the dinner where my parents asked me for money for Elena, my Uncle Vincent had already given Elena $2,500 to cover her rent and other expenses. Elena had called them desperately, saying she was going to be evicted, and Vincent, being Vincent, helped her without thinking twice. This meant that when my parents asked me for $2,000 for Elena's rent, she already had the money. She had already received it from my uncle. I couldn't believe it. I literally felt like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water on me. My uncle arrived at that moment, and when Gloria told him she had told me, he sighed and said, "Your parents knew I had given that money to Elena. I told your father 2 days before that dinner. Turns out my parents had basically lied to me. That whole story about Elena desperately needing the money, that she was going to be evicted, that it was an emergency, it had all been a lie. The money they wanted me to give wasn't really for Elena. It was probably to cover their own expenses or business debts or who knows what. They used Elena as an excuse to try to take my savings. I was so angry I didn't even know what to do with that information. My uncle told me he hadn't told me before because he thought my parents would eventually admit the truth and didn't want to cause more problems. But when he saw that wasn't going to happen, he decided I deserved to know. I decided to call Elena directly. We hadn't talked since the Facebook post she had asked me to delete. She answered after like 5 rings, and her tone was defensive from the start. "Elena," I said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did you ask our parents to ask me for money for your rent?" There was silence on the other end. A long, uncomfortable silence. Then she said, "No, I never asked them for that. In fact, I didn't even know they had asked you until you posted that post." I told her what I had discovered about the money Vincent had given her, about how our parents knew that and still asked me for money. Elena went quiet again, and then I heard she was crying. She told me her version of the story. Turns out she had been struggling financially. Her marketing job didn't pay as well as she hoped, and she had student loans to pay plus rent and expenses. When she asked Vincent and Gloria for help, it was because she was really desperate. After receiving the money, she told our parents that Vincent had helped her, thinking they would be grateful. Instead, our dad got really upset, supposedly because he was embarrassed that Vincent would see he couldn't support his own daughter. Elena told me, our parents never mentioned anything to her about asking me for money. In fact, the first time she knew about the whole thing was when she read my Facebook post. She felt horrible because the whole family now thought she had indirectly asked me for the money or that she agreed with our parents kicking me out of the house. She explained, that's why she had sent me those messages, asking me to delete the post, not because she was defending our parents, but because people were seeing her as the bad guy too. That conversation with Elena was weird because it was probably the most honest conversation we had had in years, maybe in our whole lives. I asked her about the bullying when we were kids, and she admitted she had been terrible to me. She said she had no excuse, that she was immature and insecure, and that I was an easy target because I was younger. She apologized, and while it didn't erase years of mistreatment, at least I felt it was genuine. We talked for like 2 hours that night. Elena told me things I had never known, like that our parents fought constantly about money, even before the business, or how she felt pressured all the time to be the perfect daughter because our dad had super high expectations for her. She told me that many times during college, she felt lonely and overwhelmed, but couldn't tell our parents because she had to maintain the image that everything was fine, that their investment in her was paying off. I don't know if it was that moment where something changed between us, but at the end of the conversation, we both agreed on something, that our parents had manipulated both of us in different ways our whole lives. Her by putting constant pressure and impossible expectations, me by ignoring me and treating me like I didn't matter as much. And now they had used our already damaged relationship to manipulate us even more, trying to make us fight each other so they could maintain control. Elena told me something that stuck with me. She said, "Marcus, I think Mom and Dad are so lost in their own problems that they stopped seeing us as their children and started seeing us as resources or as pieces on a board. I don't know when exactly it happened, but I don't think it'll ever be like before." And she was right. In the following weeks, Elena and I started talking more often. It's not like we suddenly became best friends or all the problems of years magically disappeared, but there was like a new understanding between us. She'd send me messages asking how the preparations for college were going. She sent me money to buy things I was going to need for the dorm, which surprised me because technically she was tighter financially than I was. At the end of July, I went to the university for orientation and to see my dorm. Vincent and Gloria took me, made a whole day trip out of it. It was the first time I felt genuinely excited about the future in weeks. The campus was beautiful, my roommate seemed cool, the professors at orientation were welcoming. For the first time since the whole situation with my parents, I felt like maybe things were going to be okay. When we got back that night, Gloria prepared a special celebration dinner. Vincent toasted to my future and said he was proud of me, that not many kids my age would have the discipline to save that much money working. Gloria hugged me and said that although she'd miss having me in the house, she knew I was going to do amazing things in college. It was a bittersweet moment because it was the kind of support I would have wanted to receive from my own parents, but knew would never come. College started in August. My parents didn't contact me to wish me luck or to say goodbye. Nothing. Vincent and Gloria helped me move into the dorm, bought me supplies, helped me get settled. Elena sent me a long message wishing me the best and telling me she'd call soon. I sat in my new room the first night alone, looking at the empty walls and processing everything that had happened in the last 2 months. It was like 2 weeks after starting classes when I tried to contact my parents one last time. I sent them a simple message saying I had started college, that I was fine, that I hoped they were fine too. I wasn't expecting much, but I guess I had a little hope they'd respond with something. My mom responded after 3 days with a 2-line message. "We're glad you're okay. Take care." Nothing more. My dad didn't even read the message, or at least never marked it as read. I tried calling them like a week later and my dad answered. The conversation lasted less than a minute. He told me that until I apologized for exposing them publicly and for being a selfish son, he had nothing to talk to me about. I told him that if he wanted us to reconcile first, he had to admit he had lied to me about Elena and the money. He laughed, a bitter and cold laugh, and said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I never lied to you. You're the one who made up that whole story to justify your selfishness." And he hung up on me. That was the last time I talked to my dad. My mom blocked me like 2 days after that initial message. I don't really know why. I guess my dad convinced her. I tried to send her messages through other means, but she never responded. Eventually, I stopped trying because I realized I was chasing something they clearly didn't want to give me, which was an acknowledgement of what they had done wrong and a real apology. Elena, on the other hand, made the decision to cut off contact with my parents completely, she told me in a call like in September. She said that after the whole situation, she had been thinking a lot about her relationship with them, about all the times they had used or manipulated her without her realizing it. She told me that when she tried to talk to them about the money thing and about how they had treated me, they told her to stay out of it, that it wasn't her problem, that she should be grateful for everything they had done for her and stay loyal to them. That's what made her make the final decision. Elena told them that if they couldn't admit they had lied and manipulated their own children, then she didn't want to have a relationship with them. Our dad told her that if that was her decision, then he no longer considered her his daughter. Elena told me this, crying, saying it hurt a lot, but she knew it was the right thing. I didn't know what to tell her because I never thought we'd get to this point, where basically we'd both lose our parents at the same time, but find each other in the process. Now I'm about to finish my first semester. Classes are hard, but I'm enjoying them. I made some friends, joined the coding club. I'm working part-time at the campus library to have extra money. Elena and I talk like once a week, sometimes more. We're not super close, but we're building something new, something that feels more real and honest than any relationship we had before. Vincent and Gloria continue to be incredible. I visit them every time there's a long weekend or a break. They've become the closest thing to parents I have now, and although I can't call them mom and dad because that would be weird, I know they love me, and they're there for me in a way my own parents never really were. I still think about my parents, I'm not gonna lie. I wonder how they are. If my dad's business got better or worse. If my mom thinks about me sometimes, if someday they're going to realize what they did. But I'm also learning to let go of the idea that someday I'm going to receive that apology or that acknowledgement I feel I deserve. Maybe it'll never happen, and I have to be okay with that. The strangest thing is that sometimes I feel guilty. Like, should I have done things differently? Should I have given the money just to keep the peace? Was I the one who destroyed the family by posting that post? But then I remember that I didn't start this. That I just reacted to an impossible situation where my parents put me against the wall and demanded I sacrifice my future for a lie. And I remember that thanks to what happened, Elena and I were finally able to have a real relationship, and that has to count for something. Last week, Elena sent me a picture of her in her new apartment. She moved to a cheaper one to be able to save money and start paying off her debts faster. She looked happy in the picture, genuinely happy. Not that forced happiness she always showed in family photos before. She wrote me, "Look, bro, my own place without family drama. You should visit me when you come for vacation." And I told her yes, that I'd definitely go. I don't know how all this is going to end long term. I don't know if someday my parents are going to change their minds or if we'll be able to rebuild some kind of relationship. Honestly, right now, I'm not sure if I want that. What I do know is that I'm at the college I wanted, studying what I like, with money I earned and saved myself. I have a new and better relationship with my sister. I have an aunt and uncle who support me unconditionally. and I'm learning to build my own life without depending on the approval or support of people who showed that their love was conditional. I guess that's enough for now. It's not the happy movie ending I maybe expected when I was 16 dreaming about my future, but it's real and it's mine, and that has to mean something.